Hello and welcome to the Sunday Conversation. I'm Alan Masters. So today I want to talk about gratitude. I want to start out by saying, first of all, thank you to all of you that come to this little Sunday talk that we have, and all of you that watch it and listen to it, whether you're watching or listening, because today it's only audio, but we're working on having it become video again, and also with our Monday through Friday show, to be able to have it to where you can watch it live while we're recording it, and then you can also, if you want, listen on the radio. We're in a multimedia world. It's just that it's been a little difficult with this COVID stuff going on in the pandemic and all that. But gratitude, that's the topic for today. So as I go through my life, I am starting to understand fully about the importance of gratitude, living in gratitude. Some people say to me, well, the Sunday talk is always about you. And I said, well, yeah, I guess, because I'm the guy holding the mic. But it's also about all of us, because these are principles that we should all be living our lives. And I'm learning them. And as I learn, then I want to teach it to people. What I'm learning, I want to tell it to people. And so it's my testimony of my growing and my learning. And I'm not trying to be a teacher, but I'm the student. And as I'm the student telling what I'm learning, guess what? Then the student is the teacher. So I'm finding that I used to think I was happy. And we talked one day about the pursuit of happiness. And I don't think people realize that happy is not what we should pursue. We talked about that. It's joy. But, you know, when you've lived a life pursuing happiness, and all of a sudden one day you're disappointed by the fact that you've been gypped with the pursuit of happiness because you weren't being conscious of that happiness is really kind of like a poison pill, because you keep trying to make yourself happy all the time, pleasure, pleasure, pleasure. And all it's really doing is slowly kind of eroding your ability to find true joy, because happiness and joy are not the same thing. The pursuit of happiness can be the tweaker. He's happy when he gets his fix. It can be a bad thing. Just being happy is it's a temporary thing, where joy is something that you can live in, and you can live kind of endlessly and constantly in joy. And the joy that I'm experiencing through growing is showing me what true joy is. So as we experience that, you know, I want to share it personally.
This came to me not too long ago, that people are foolish to seek happiness. I think what my own understanding of my spirit told me, that we should seek for contentment. Because if you don't have your health, and you don't have your physical health and mental health, well, you're in trouble.
So I'll comment to that, because I feel like that I get contentment through seeking truth. And the truth sets me free, and I become content when I'm starting to see the truth and understand the truth in its fullness. And that truth kind of burns away, well, I don't know how to even say it. It dissipates the lies that I've been told, that the world has told me, has layered on me. Lie after lie, year after year, culture after culture. The young boys that are staying at my house right now, we're talking about culture the other day. And matter of fact, I got to ask one of them what they said. You said something funny. So I asked the one boy, and he couldn't remember what it was, but the one he spoke it to does.
Uncultured swine.
He called her an uncultured swine, which is, to me, is so funny, because if we look at culture is one of those layers of lies that gets put on us that says you have to be this way if you're Jewish, Mormon, Christian. You have to be this way, act this way. And that's, you know, kind of the culture you live in. Maybe if you go to ethnicity as Spanish or German or Italian, we use those things as crutches and we make excuses. Well, I'm Italian. I can't help my anger. It's part of me. See? Now, the culture, the uncultured swine, is an uncultured swine, because he's a cultured swine. Actually, he's using his culture as a crutch, as an excuse to be an angry person because he's Italian. Actually, and a man said that to me the other day. He says, I'm Italian, so I'm an angry man. He says, it's my culture. He says, my whole family's angry. I said, does that make it right? Is it right to be angry and blame it on your culture? and on your, family and everything else? No. So as I'm waking up to all these things, what happens is God shines a light on everything, including culture, so that I don't have to be a cultured swine. I could actually, for a little while, be an uncultured swine, because if you remove culture, that doesn't make you a better person. You just all of a sudden are revealed to be the swine that you are. And then you can say, I don't like being this person. I don't like being an angry Italian. I don't like being an overly Jewish Jew when I'm Jewing everybody, or a Mexican person, as Catherine just said next to me, because we all have these cultures. Like, I have a friend who's a Jew, and I went to buy something with him one time, and he got a quote. It was tires. And the guy gave him a price of like $267. He goes, do it for $200. Come on, you can do it for $200. And the guy says, no. He says, I'll tell you what. He says, I'll give it to you for $243. So he lowered his price a little bit. So it worked, right? He says, come on, $210. He goes, that's all the most I'm going to do. And he looks at me and he winks. He's like, watch this. I'm a Jew. I'm going to Jew this guy down, right? And I'm watching this going, how far is this going to go? This goes on back and forth for, 3 or 4 minutes. And he was getting to this point where he was really starting to anger the guy behind the counter. The guy kept on, through pressure, lowering his price. The guy was getting frustrated behind the counter at my friend. My friend winked at me. And I finally said, you know what? This is going on too far. I said, you're making a game out of it. And I like to gamify certain things also. But when you are angering another person, you're starting to do it to kind of frustrate a person to get something. Anyway, he got it to where it was like $217, which was a heck of a deal, I have to tell you, from $267. He probably got it for the wholesale price. I get it. Us Jews, we know we got to have a good deal. That's all there is to it. But I remember talking to him afterwards, because we were sitting there now waiting to have the tires put on. I said, at what point do you take it too far? At what point are you doing it and there's a cruelty in it? Okay? So what happens is, what starts out as a cultural thing, right, being a Jew, or being a cheap Jew, I guess you might say, to where you're finally getting to the point where you are really pushing a person too far to get a reaction and to then manipulate them, because as my father has taught, if somebody gets angry, you own them. So if you can anger somebody, by the fact that they're representing a big brand, a tire store, they can't tell you to get the hell out of their store. You're going too far with this. Or if they were smart, they may say, that's the price. You make your mind up. Thank you very much. See, there's 2 ways of doing it, because you're either on the side of somebody pressuring you, or you're the person that is pressuring. So if you just look at life, if you become a study of life, there's so many games that get played through this cultural thing. So the reason why I'm going here is because I want these boys that were joking around with the little girl that said you're an uncultured swine because she didn't like some music that they were listening to, which is funny. It goes too far, just like to the little girl that was being told she's an uncultured swine at 10 or 11 years old, starting to think, well, maybe I need culture. Maybe I have to take culture in. What is my culture? See, you guys could not realize, but you're telling her culture is good when culture may not be good. Culture may be bad. The truth is good. What is the truth out of all this, right? So at the end of the day, she may not like the music, so be it. But you have to be careful with your words. That's how I started out talking here, is we got to be careful with what we say and how we go about talking to other people. So I just wanted to talk for the boys' sake about this cultural thing and how it's a mistake. Sometimes, kids use words on each other, but people do it too. You uncultured swines. Then he called her a cultured swine. It's really fun watching kids. I don't know how you guys, if you folks have children, you get to be around, but when you're around kids, there's a whole nother world that's happening. We have our judgments. We have our ways that we are living our lives. We get set in our ways. And when you get around children, you see how much like clay they are, how malleable they are, how, what we say to them affects them in their lives. And they're like clay. And what happens is God is the ultimate potter. And if we're not centered on the potter's will, then you can't, the wheel spins and the clay just flings out and goes and becomes some strange shape. But if it's centered in Christ, if our lives are centered as the wheel spins all around us, then we're able to be formed into whatever it is that God wants us to be. And kids get on this potter's wheel, and then the parents try and form them into these things, and they're not centered in Christ, so they create these little strange-looking creations, you might say. So I'm watching how my friend Rachel is working with her children and has to make decisions, a single mother, has to make decisions each and every day on how to bring up her kids. We have that same responsibility with our children, but also with the children that God put into our lives. And sometimes the child can be a 60, 70, 80-year-old person, which is the little child inside that has never really been loved properly, that is that piece of clay that is malformed, that needs somebody to help center them on the potter's wheel so that before they leave this earth, they can be centered in that way and created into what God wants them to be as they finish well. We go through our lives and we get broken and we get damaged, but we're still God's clay. And He can mold us again in the way He wants us, even right at the end of our lives. And it all boils down to being centered. This meditation exercise, the be still and know, is that centering process. I don't know how many people in here have ever used a potter's wheel. Can you raise your hand? Not many. It's the most interesting thing. You take a lump of clay and you plop it right into the middle, the best of your ability. And if they said to you, okay, is that the middle of the potter's wheel? And you'd say, yeah, it looks like the middle to me, until you start spinning that wheel, and that's life. And all of a sudden you see that it's off center just a little tiny bit. It's wobbling all over the place. And you've got to use your hands to pull it to the center. And then you're able to create something out of it. So as we go through our lives and we're off-centered, we're wobbling through life. And we're not able to be what our Father in heaven wants us to be until we become centered. So that meditation exercise, I know you guys all know it here, but that is that centering process. That is, if there is such a thing as pulling yourself back to the center of the wheel, pulling yourself back to the center to be centered in your Father in heaven, with your Father in heaven, that is the exercise, the mechanism that is the centering of the soul. Otherwise, you have all these forces, gravity and physics working against you constantly that are working in our world today to pull us out of our center. The news, the politics of the day, the anger and the angst that is being created by the news and the politics of the day. It's making you angry. And what happens is then comes angst. To me, angst is when you have fear of the unknown in the future. You have angst. You're afraid of what can happen off into the future, which again is a lack of faith. Because see, I have things that are working against me all the time. And I look at these things and I go, okay, I don't know what the future holds. What if this, what if that, what if this? That's the devil working in my head. And I think, well, that's not having faith. God has His hand in whatever happens. And since there are so many people on this world, and there are so many people trying to learn all these lessons every day, that He has to sometimes rock my life a little bit, that somebody next to me needs to wake up. And so I feel the ripple effect of that, or maybe the whole world needs to wake up right now. So we're experiencing this horrible thing that is going on. You can call it a pandemic or whatever. I believe it is a spiritual warfare. This virus is just part of the spiritual warfare because it creates an opportunity to grow for many people that even think they're spiritual human beings. You look at the people in the churches. They live in fear and angst, even though they're going to church every weekend. And you know what? I know they need to go to church to be able to say, okay, God, I know you got your hand on this, but they should live that way Monday through Saturday as well, instead of just on Sunday. So they spend their whole week letting angst build, and then on Sunday they drop it off at the church, and then on Monday they start over with their angst again. So I know that I have to live every day in my life in faith, being centered, putting myself back to my center again through little exercise that is so simple to do. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. That's my church, being with my Father in heaven. It's just a momentary thing. It's just a quiet little moment. Blaise Pascal says all of man's problems stem from his inability to sit in a room by himself quietly. And what does God say? Be still and know that I am God. So we know we must be still. We must be quiet, calm, centered like the potter's wheel. We got to be right in the center because the world is going to spin all around us and it'll spin us off into these crazy shapes unless we can keep centering ourselves. It isn't church that will save you. It isn't remembering verse and chapter that will save you. It's remembering your Father in heaven will give you in your heart what you need to know each and every day if you seek that of him. If you seek it of your friends and your family and your church, then you're not going to be able to be centered. Truly being centered is being still and know that he is God and he's got his hand in your life on you. As John Voight said when he was going through his most difficult time, it's so difficult, God, it's so difficult. And God spoke into his heart, it's supposed to be difficult. So we know it's supposed to be difficult. We know it is. And so what I do is I wake up each and every day. God wakes me up. He brings me back from my sleep. He brings me back and shows me, Alan, wake up. Wake up and go do your day. And I'm full of gratitude that he wakes me up each day because the day I don't wake up, my family will be sad, but I'll be with him because I want to be obedient to him. So when I wake up and I go, okay, what's today going to be like, God? Let's go. You got my back. I know it. And no matter what happens, it's okay. It's okay. If I cut my arm off by accident, well, I was really not paying attention, but oh well, I need to learn something from that. I hope I don't cut my arm off. But everything that happens to us happens for a reason. And you look at people that have, one gentleman that's coming to our Reckoning seminar, when he was 21, I told you this, he fell and broke his back. And I think, oh my gosh, can you imagine? You fall. We all have fallen. Imagine falling one time and saying, okay, well, that's the end of your life pretty much. You're going to be in a wheelchair for the rest of your life, no kids, no family. And he's a Mormon guy. And, you know, Mormons love having kids. They love it because they know that they're going to rear those kids right. And they know that it's like a gift from God and they treat it that way. And the doctor says, no kids for you. Well, he proved that doctor wrong. He had 4 beautiful kids. But it just shows that whatever happens to you in your life, you don't take man's word for the outcome. The doctors are always going to tell you. The doctors are going to say, you have cancer, you're going to die. You have this, you're going to die. Anybody in here had cancer before? Skin cancer? Well, it's cancer, isn't it? Yeah, you've had cancer. See, probably in those moments, you thought, I'm going to die. She didn't. That's good. Good for you. Yeah, good for you, right? She goes, I didn't. That's really how we have to be. That's how we have to be no matter what it is. You know, I remember when they told my dad, you have to have an open heart surgery because your heart's blocked. His father died in his arms when he was like 13 or 14 years old. A heart attack. Imagine him thinking, well, my culture, my heritage, my family, it's in my family, right? We die of heart attacks because that's part of it, that same cultural thing. Another layer of you're going to die of this. So guess what? If you swallow that poison pill that doctor gave you, you're probably you're going to go that way. But if you say, you know what? I am not my father. My dad had to determine, I am not my father. I don't want to die. What do we need to do? You know what my dad said? I remember him saying to me afterwards. He says, I believe the doctors and I shouldn't have. He says, I should have walked out that door. They actually told my dad if he walks out the door, he could die. One of my dad's biggest mistakes was believing his doctors. And because his father died in his arms, a little boy's fear, the devil played on a little boy's fear and got him. Open heart surgery, 4-way bypass. He was never the same. Never the same after that. Then my dad had a heart attack, went to the doctors, and they said to him, you're going to need to have another bypass. And he says, I'm not going to. This time he says, I'm not going to. If God wants to take me, he'll take me. And I don't know what it was, 4, 5, 6 months, maybe a year later, he had this horrible pain in his chest. Went to the doctor, went to the hospital. The doctor says, well, very interesting, Roy. Your heart just bypassed itself. It opened up a big fat vein because the vein got blocked again, probably from eating too much butter. We love butter. It's a cultural, my wife says that's not it. But point is, I'm joking. The point is, the doctor says, your heart opened up a vein and now you don't need a bypass. My dad, I remember him looking at that doctor going, why didn't you tell me this could happen? And he said, well, it's very rare. It's very rare. See, their job is, you're a surgeon, you're a butcher, you got a butch. You're a butcher, you go butcher. Yeah, how's he going to pay for the Mercedes, this gentleman said. That's right. So my dad realized that he had made a mistake the first time around because maybe God was going to give him his own little bypass. And so I'm not saying don't listen to your doctors, but you have to listen to the doctor in heaven. That's who you got to listen to, because we've all had those things. I had my gallbladder out, and I got to take a little pill every time I eat it. I don't have to, but it sure makes it easy to go to the bathroom if I do. I take a little digestive enzyme because I don't have a gallbladder. And I remember when they got that last gallstone out of me, he says, let's take that gallbladder out. It'll only take 15 or 20 minutes. No big deal. Pop it right out of there. And I thought to myself, all right, go ahead, get that sucker out of there. I don't want another one of those gallstones. And you know what? Now, my life has not been the same, but I'm fortunate to have only lost a little gallbladder. But I still have all my wisdom teeth. I've been like, no, they give me wisdom. No, I don't care. I don't want to take them out. And I remember my dad, I'm not taking my wisdom teeth out. Look, I'm 75 and I still have my own teeth. And he'd grin and I'd go, Dad, you need to go to the dentist and get those suckers cleaned. Anyway, we'd laugh about it. My dad was he was such an interesting individual. But I'm learning from that. I look at all these things and I think to myself, you know what? I removed this gallbladder because I felt I didn't really want to do what it was going to take to be a healthy man. I get rid of this thing that is blocking my way to eating burgers and greasy things. Guess what? I don't need to eat those things anymore. I ate a burger last night and I was like, I don't miss that. I made it on my own little barbecue, but I haven't had a burger in quite a while. It's again, if we just live by what we like that makes us happy, then we start to go to the earth. Because if you live for happiness instead of what your purpose is, you're going to eventually lose, a lot of your bits and pieces that God designed and put into you as his perfect creation. Yet we alter them and remove them and do things like that. And so back to living in gratitude. I live in gratitude and I realize, okay, God, you're going to show me how I really need to live the right way. And so that I don't need to die the death of the sinner. I can perhaps live my life and finish well and have what God wants for me. And I watched my father pass away, and he passed away and he was just this sweet little old man that had lived his life. I was reading the Bible and it says Noah lived 950 years and then he died. And it's interesting. Each one of these people lived, 900 years and 700 years and 400 years, and they died, and they died, and they died. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. At the end, do we finish well? That's what I'm trying to find my way to, is finishing well so that when I die, my children say, I want to be like Dad. Like I say, I want to be like my dad, which I do. And I look at my dad's life and I see a noble man. I look at my friend who's with us here today and I say, she doesn't want to drink coffee. She doesn't want to eat sugar. She drinks only water. And then she said something to me, I'm going to ask her to say it to you guys, about how you don't want to have, and I'm going to let you say it, but how you don't want to have anything that controls you. But I'd love to hear your take on that.
I guess my goal is to be self-controlled in every area, in what I think, what I say, what I do, how I act, what I eat, what I see, and what I hear. So completely controlled where I'm in control and nothing is controlling me. That's kind of my thought.
I think that's beautiful because it isn't just what we eat that kills us. It's what we allow in our eyes, pornography or all these garbage things, movies that are just nasty and disgusting. What we listen to, young men, listen to this. What we listen to, the type of music that we allow into our heads, all these things control us. The food we put in our bodies, it takes us away from God. It takes us away from God because then you have visuals and you have memories of visuals. You have audio playing in your head. Certain songs will come up when you're thinking of somebody or some experience. So then all of a sudden in your head, the virtual reality has visual. It has music connected to it. It has feelings connected to it.
Yeah, one thing I found I'm from Los Angeles area. So I'm well aware of barrios and ghettos and stuff. I know all about that. And I see these white boys around here riding around playing rap, and they don't know a darn thing about it. If they actually went into those ghettos, they'd get pulled over by some black guy and beat the poop out of them, I'm telling you. But they got to be accepted. And I said, why do they have to talk so fast? I mean, I can't understand what they're saying, you know? So what do you get out of it? And they really don't know. But they want acceptance as sort of a rebel cause, you know, that's the way they get back at their folks that they're rebelling, that they're controlling their own lives, but, you know, that's wrong.
No, it's a good point that we can say, I'm going to control my life and I'm going to use all these elements, the rap music and the wearing the pants way down, their butt cracks are hanging out, and it's like this certain look, right? The walk, you can see the strut they have and the way they go, yeah, yeah. It's like, it's just even the way that they talk to each other. And then I was looking at, we had these little Mormon girls come and help out at the ranch. I have some friends that are Mormon, so they always send their girls that are out on their mission. They're like, Alan's safe. You go to Alan, he'll put you to work. And I will. They were pulling weeds. This one girl requested like friendship on social media, so I'm looking at her life, and she's got all these other Mormon young boys that are her friends as well. And they're given like the sign of the devil, which is holding your little finger and your first finger up, right? They don't even realize they're holding up this sign of the devil as this cool sign, right? They don't realize that's the sign of the devil. Did you guys know that? No. Have you ever done this sign with the first finger and the little finger sticking up? That's the horns, right? So when we mimic something we see in a music video as young kids, and the parents don't really understand what's going on, and then the kids start taking on that persona, right? There's a painting in the back of the room here that really describes that from 1970. It's 51 years old that somebody painted, and I want the boys to go look at this when it's done, because that's the world. And we watch the world, and then we pick little pieces of the world, and we construct ourselves out of the pieces of the world. And so what happens is you grow up one day and you look back and you go, I'm not me. I'm pieces of the world that I've used to put together the puzzle called me. Now you have to deconstruct yourself. You have to take those things kind of apart, or you say to your father, you know what, I don't want to be this. Wash my soul. Some people say baptism washes the soul, right? Washes it all away, and you can be reborn. This is, I think, where all this comes from, is sometimes you got to just unzip the old self and step out of it, because you construct a bad self, a bad version of yourself. And then one day you wake up and go, I don't want to be this person.
That exactly fits into what Charles wanted to talk about today.
This room is filled with mostly adults, or people who look like they're adults and who may be children at heart. They may be children at heart, and there are children who are children. They're just children. There's nothing they could do about it. This is where they are. We all came from that. We were all there once. And I saw this movie last night, which struck me because it was a real pivotal movie in my understanding and my awakening to the life around me. And I was just a young man when I saw it, and it's about a young man. It's called The Graduate. And it's about a young man who's finished his successful college graduation, has done everything he's supposed to, won all his awards, and he comes home, and he's just like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. And he's meeting with his parents, who seem like nice enough people, and they're wealthy people, and meeting with his parents' friends, and some of them have known him since he was a little boy, and they're all trying to give him guidance on what to do, and he doesn't know what to do. And the guidance conflicts with each other. One person says, get into business, and somebody else says, you got to go out there and live. You got to find out what life's all about. Sow your wild oats. And so he's sort of drifting in this summer. It's a summer of drifting. I went through the same thing. And what he ends up seeing is that all these adults whom he admired and followed their advice are all screwed up in some way. Some of them are hypocrites, and some of them really believe what they live, but it's just too phony. And he sees the phoniness, and he never saw it before. Doesn't know what to do. He sees this phoniness. And so he ends up doing a lot of stupid things this summer, which is the first part of the movie. It's a little hard for me to sit through all the stupid mistakes he makes, but people do this. But at some point, this young man, without telling us this, we were watching him go through this. They don't tell us what he's going through. He realizes that he sees an innocence. He sees something in himself he didn't see before, and it tells him to do something that is totally irrational, against the culture, against the discipline, against self-control, against common sense, everything. But he feels compelled to do this because in his meanness and self-centeredness, he touched the innocence in a young woman that he had known all his life, but he didn't know her well. And he touched that innocence, and he actually tried to crush it with this meanness that was in him that came from his dealing with life. And he didn't want to be that person. And at some point he realizes, I want to go find that woman and live my life with her. But it's not he wants to capture her. He loved the innocence in her, and he wanted the innocence in him to do something, but didn't know how to do it. It was stupid what he was trying to do. I'm trying not to give away the movie. But he goes on this journey, and he tells his parents, well, I'm going to go up and marry this woman. He's, oh, great, we will have a great ceremony. He said, well, she doesn't know this yet. And her parents don't know this yet. Nobody knows this. Well, that's stupid. You can't just go up there. Well, I'm just going to do it. So he goes up to where she's at, 500 miles away, and sits in the center of the campus of the college she's going to, and just sits on the side of the fountain there. Nobody's there. And then the next scene we see him there, and there's hundreds of people walking back and forth from classes and in the middle of everything. And he's just sitting there looking around. And all of a sudden she comes out of a building and walks by, and he sees her. And that begins this strange little courtship that isn't a courtship, because he doesn't know what he's doing. She doesn't know what he's doing. She's mad at him, and she's got good reason to be. And he's made her a mad woman because of the injustice of what he has been enticed in by her own mother. So it's a crazy combination, but the meaning is so profound. I'm so amazed when I see it even today. And in the end, his innocence, against all odds, with no plan, and everything always going wrong, he goes on this journey and he only sees the next thing he has to do, and he tries to do it, and he almost can do it, but he can't, but then he can do this, and then he can do that. And finally he runs in desperation for the last thing he can do. And in that desperation, she looks up at him and sees in him something that she doesn't even know what it is, but it's that innocence and that helplessness, but that courage to go into the unknown. And she has it too, and they both live that life. I used to always be discouraged when I saw the movie, because the end of the movie, they're just sitting in the back of the bus making their escape from life. And you say, well, what are they going to do now? What's their life going to be like? And I kind of felt like I was cheated by the movie. And later on in life, as I started living life, I said, oh, I'm glad they didn't go any farther. For all we know, they ended up like their parents. Or not. Maybe they ended up different. Maybe they ended up holding that innocence that they had as children, and yet were able to be adults, but were still innocent. And that, to me, is what life is about. You got to grow up as a kid. You got to have your bumps and falls. You got to make mistakes. And at some point, there's going to be an awakening in you that is not like anything any parent can give you, any adult can give you. It's a different kind of awakening. And that's what this little quote I was going to use from Roy's book was. I found this paragraph. I read it 2 weeks ago, and all of a sudden it struck something in me. How I discovered the paragraph is bizarre. And I just read the paragraph, and it triggered something in me. And then last night, my wife said, "Oh, I just put this movie on our list." And it was The Graduate. What Roy said in this book, I'm not going to read it because it's hard to read. But what it's saying is that you will grow up as a child with your ego nature, your proud nature, and you will try to be good at what you do. You'll be the best athlete or the best student or the best this or the best daughter or the best son or the meanest brother or the wildest person who's always crazy and screws everything up whenever they come in the room. You'll try to be that. And at some point, as you grow up, there's going to be a time when, and Roy calls it, he says, the light, and he capitalizes the word light. The light will come into your life, and you will look around and see the craziness. And you will do one of two things. You will either double down on your proud nature and make yourself more of what you are, whatever that is, or you will use your ego nature to be better than that and to discipline yourself to become better than all these other things and to get rid of the craziness so that you're better. And he says both of them are wrong. Amen.
I'm that guy you just described. The light came into me, and I don't have to use my ego and my will. I just know that I don't know, and of myself I can do nothing. And I just have a pure heart, an innocent heart. That's why I think I get attracted to the children, because they're so innocent, and the tuning fork resonates in me that's in them. It's like, it's okay to not know. It's okay.
There's something on the website. It's if you're not seeking the truth or you're not looking for it, trouble will cause you to seek the truth. Or I'm not saying it right, but you will have trouble in your life that will cause you to seek the truth. Difficulties.
Adversity is there for us to learn. It's there for us to be able to rise above the adversity with, guess what? Some courage, some wisdom, some love. And when you hit that moment of truth, the moment of truth, that's when the real person has to either stand up or fall apart. And if you fall apart, then you look to lean on the lies that you've been taught by others, the culture. You learn to lean on all of these things that are excuses and reasons and cultural things. And you don't want to do that. Just always be truthful.
Sometimes we're really hard on ourselves because we think that we should be something that we're not. So I'll give you an example. I'm extremely highly sensitive, and I'm a very slow learner. And when I say I'm a slow learner, I do martial arts. And in martial arts, I am the slowest in the class. My professor gets frustrated with me quite often. And half of the time that I'm there, I wind up in tears just because I know I'm not fast enough. And I know that about myself. And the difference is I accept it. And I know that I'm not going to be like the rest of the class. And I'm going to have to work twice as hard. I'm going to have to go in an extra day a week, and I do, just to keep up with the class. And even then, I'm still at the bottom. And I've accepted that, and I'm okay with that now. And it's taken me time to really accept myself for who I am and my gifts and abilities, and understanding that there's nothing wrong with me. I just process things differently. I just act differently, and that's okay. And the best thing is, 2 weeks ago, I tested for my next level. Normally, I'm terrified. I wind up crying before because I'm so nervous. You say the word test, and I freak out. But I tested, and when I was testing, I was very nervous, and I did the best job I could have done. And at the end of the test, my professor, he's a 30-year veteran. He's extremely scary. He's very veteran-y, like he is intelligent. I mean, he is scary to look at. You look at him and you freak out. And so he said in front of the whole class, he said, the people that I thought were going to be at the bottom of this test, because he grades this in order, were at the top. And the people that I were testing with, like I was testing with black belts and other people that were just way better. And he said the people that were at the top were at the bottom. And he was so shocked, and everybody knew who he was talking to. And I tested at the second of the class. And that was the best day that I could possibly have, because it was that moment where I realized that it didn't matter where I was and what I thought I was. I did a good job. And I was proud of myself for the accomplishments. And just knowing that even though it's going to take me twice as hard, and even I have to accept my learning abilities for who I am and not try to be something that I'm not. And there's hope. Yes, there's hope in that. There's like this amazing thing that I can say is that I didn't give up. And that's the difference is even though we know that we're slower, we're not going to give up, and we're going to press through that, because at the end of it, you can see the fruit. At the end of it, you can say, okay, I did the best that I could. And if that's all that I have, then so be it.
We think everybody's judging us. We think everybody hates us. We just want to go eat worms. That's like self-destruction is what it is.
And now it's a joke. I laugh at myself. I laugh and go, yep, I'm the slowest. Oh, well. and I've accepted it. And people will make, like, they don't do it out of being mean. But now it's kind of, okay, I'm going to accept this. And everybody has accepted it too. And so when I did test at the second and I got one of the top places, like everybody was shocked. And now I can go back in. Guess what? The day after the test, I was back at the bottom and my professor was getting frustrated at me and I was smiling and laughing because I already know. I already know how I'm going to process things, and I'm not upset at myself anymore for it.
Yeah. So to each in his own time and ability. So I started talking about gratitude in the beginning and the importance of it. If you can take the worst that happens to you and look at it as a lesson and say, thank you, Lord, that is what I needed to wake up to you, then that is the door that opens for you to change. Because if you get angry at it, that's like another lock on the door. And you have so many locks on the door that keep you from passing through to the other side that you put on yourself. You put on yourself these locks on the door that keep you from being able to pass through to where, you meet God on the other side. He meets you where you are. He's just on the other side of a door that you put up in front of your own self. Anger, resentment, judgment, self-judgment, all these things, instead of just simply having gratitude and realizing on the journey of life, you are going to hit many potholes.
If you go through your day, there's little pennies from heaven. For me, it's resentments of different situations that I go through. And if I don't see it at the time, I'm locked into that and I'm going to relive it over and over, like Groundhog Day. And so if you're awake enough and you see it, you can let it pass and then you're free from it. So all these resentments are tied to traumas in the past. And as you deal with each one, you get closer and closer and closer to God. Even if you fail, if there's a gratitude in seeing it, you get closer.
That's it. Anybody got anything else? Thank you very much, everybody, for coming.